Hello everybody, in this video we're going to start to learn chapter 2, and so chapter 2 will focus on the discrete statistics, and again we are focusing on the chart and the diagram. And so for this first introduction video, I just want to emphasize what you need to pay attention when you are starting to learn this chapter. So as we going through this chapter, you will notice that there are so many concepts you actually learn from Stat 260. So what's the difference? So the two differences. First, you have to focus on the Excel skill. And the second, although you learn so many different methods from the Stat 260, you know the definition. In this class, you have to understand the limitation of each method. So which means when you are dealing with the data like gender, like eye color, hair color, you might not be able to use the method you use to analyze age, temperature to analyze it. So all different kind of the graph and the table, they actually have the limitations. So when you are learning this chapter, make sure you focus on what will be the proper graph and the chart you can use to summarize certain kind of data. So I will help you go through this, especially when you work on your final project. And so if you look at the grading rubric and the guidance of the project, you will notice that I actually require you in the very beginning of the report, and you're supposed to do the discrete statistic analysis, so you have to properly use the methods. So again, pay attention on how to use Excel to generate those chart and tables, and also pay attention on what will be the proper method, And so let's give you an overview about what we're going to learn in this chapter. So in this chapter, I separate this chapter into two parts. So this whole chapter is talk about the discrete statistic, basically focusing on the table and the chart. So tabular display is a table, and the graphical display is a chart. And so the part A, we are focusing on summarizing one data, so one variable. And in part B, we're going to focus on how we use the table or chart to summarize the relationships, to finding the relationship between two variables. Part A, we focus on one independent data. Part B, we focus on the relationship between two variables or two data. And when you are learning this part, pay attention on interpretation, computer skill, and the choice criterion. And so, first of all, we have to understand when you chose the proper method, you have to properly identify the data you're analyzing. So generally speaking, we have two different kinds of data we learned from chapter 1. So that is a categorical data and a quantitative data. So categorical variable and a quantitative variable. So the reason we need to classify the variable is because some method you can only use to summarize the categorical data. Some of the method you only can use to summarize quantitative data. Therefore, it's very, very important you have this good foundation built up before we move on to look at different kind of method. So if you are dealing with the categorical data, so what would be the possible method? Regarding the categorical data, in this class, we're going to learn 5 different methods: frequency attribution, relative frequency, percent frequency, and the bar chart and the pie chart. So if you are taking the notes, so make sure you understand the first 3 methods we consider as a tabular method. So there are tabular method. The last 2, bar chart and the pie chart, so these will be considered as a graphical. Remember, as I said before, so the tabular means table. Graphical is like a bars, diagram, the bar and the pies. So therefore, there's a graphical display. So the first 3 are the possible tabular method you can use to summarize categorical data, and the last 2, bar chart and pie chart, are the method you can use to summarize the using the categorical data. So for instance, if you receive a data set, it's including 50 observations. So one of the variable is about gender. So the first thing you need to think about, okay, gender is a categorical data. Therefore, I can use either frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency distribution, or bar chart, pie chart. So this is the categorical data. if you're handling with the quantitative data, so what would be the possible graphical and tabular display? So if we talk about the tabular display, so we have frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, and sorry, so this one has to move up here. So the cumulative frequency distribution. So the frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, and the cumulative frequency distribution. So they are considered as the graphical tabular display. And the histogram and the leaf, stem and leaf display. So these two will be the graphical display. So in this class, we only focus on the histogram. So we won't look at the stem and leaf display. The reason is because the limitation of the Excel. So the Excel, without knowing the macro, we're only using their basic function, and you only can generate histogram. And plus, histogram is more popularly used in the business world than the stem and leaf display. Therefore, for the graphical display, for the quantitative data, we're going to focus on the histogram. So, for instance, if you got that 50 observation, as I mentioned in the previous slides, I give you an example about the people collect data, 50 observation, 50 person. So we talk about gender. How about another variable is about the height? So how tall each person. So obviously the height of each person is quantitative data. So in order to summarize those 50 observations, you can use frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, cumulative frequency distribution, or you can use histogram. So to give you this introduction is to help you understand that not only knowing how to generate tables and charts, but also it's even more important in the business world is choosing the proper methods. In order to choose the proper method, the first of all you have to know is the type of data you're analyzing, and the second you have to remember these two slides. So these two slides is a guideline to help you to choose the proper the visual summarization, so visual method to summarize your data. So in next video, we're gonna focus on our categorical summarizing categorical data. We're gonna look at frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, bar chart, and pie chart. And after that, we're gonna look at our the method you can use to summarize the quantitative data.